Welcome to the day. Donald Trump is stepping up his efforts to expand his control over the US central bank. In an unprecedented move, the US president announced that he's firing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. A Biden appointee, Ms. Cook is the first black woman on the board of governors. She's one of a small number of people who helped lead the Fed, making key decisions on interest rates and banking regulation. President Trump's announcement came in a letter posted on social media saying he's removing her over allegations that she committed mortgage fraud. Ms. Cook has rejected the firing and says there is no cause under the law for her removal. Fed governors can only be removed for serious misconduct or incapacity. Allegations alone are not enough. Ms. Cook says she'll stay in office, setting up a potential legal showdown, testing the limits on presidential powers. No president has ever removed a sitting Fed governor. Replacing her with a Trump-aligned governor could tilt the board towards lower interest rates, which Trump has been calling for months. Let's take a closer look at this with Kenneth Rogoff. He's a former chief economist at the International Monetary Fund and is now a professor at Harvard University, where he's focused in great part on central bank independence. Welcome to DW. Do you think this is really about mortgage fraud? What do you think Donald Trump really wants?
Well, what Donald Trump really wants is to have total control over every institution in the United States, and it irks him that the Federal Reserve's independent and that it's able to exert independence over something that's very important to him, which is the level of interest rates. But that said, he has found a weakness, and he's going to push on it.
And how weak is this weakness? Can the president actually fire her?
That is going to be determined in court. I certainly hope not. I mean, I think having independent institutions in general, not just the Federal Reserve. I would also say the person who puts together the numbers at the Labor Department, whom he fired. But having an independent Federal Reserve is very important to the stability of the global financial system, to having stable inflation. And if we get to a situation where any president, not just Donald Trump, but future presidents, can fire members of the Federal Reserve Board, essentially at will, we'll end up with higher inflation, more financial instability. It's a lose-lose situation.
I feel like I've seen this movie before. Is it fair to contrast what's happening in the United States with what has happened in Turkey?
Well, a little extreme, where the Turkish President Erdogan fired one central banker after another who they had inflation pushing 100%. They were trying to raise interest rates to bring it down. Turkey has been a disaster in that respect. But it reminds me a lot of President Nixon. He was a U.S. president in the 1970s who put a lot of pressure on the Federal Reserve back before its independence was anchored as firmly as today. And look what happened then. We had the great inflation, we had terrible growth. It's not good for Trump, it's not good for anyone, but he wants the power.
Okay. So what happens then if he gets the power? You've predicted this sort of this catastrophic scenario where if Donald Trump gets to hire whom he likes, the economy tanks. Does one necessarily follow the other?
Well, it doesn't happen right away, and there's a lot going on besides this, and one never knows with Donald Trump. Sometimes his bark is bigger than his bite. He could appoint somebody very responsible to replace them. He did that back on his last term as president. He appointed Jay Powell, who was terrific. The person there, Janet Yellen, was pretty good, but Trump said he wanted his own person. And if that's all there is to it, it might not prove so bad. Although I think the whole process by which he said, I want the Fed to do my bidding, undermines us. We have a lot of debt in the United States, and it's very tempting for the president to try to bring the interest rate down because the interest costs are now, one of the couple largest items in our budget, and he wants to bring it down. But if he wants to bring it down, how about try balancing the budget instead of firing people at the Fed?
And of course, Lisa Cook, not the only senior Fed official the president has his eyes on at the moment. I see Jerome Powell has recently hinted at bringing the Fed policy in line with what Donald Trump, after Donald Trump has made quite a lot of noise about getting rid of him.
Well, I think the Fed needs to think about bringing down interest rates because there's mixed evidence on what's going on in the labor market. We don't know. But I mean, in fact, Powell's been very cautious. Trump wants 3 full percentage points cut in the interest rate tomorrow. It's up at 4.5%. He wants 1.5%. Powell saying, oh, maybe I'll bring it down a quarter in September, and I'm not making any promises, and I'm not even promising September. So no, they're just reacting to the data that inflation's above target, but not so much. They're worried about growth slowing. There's just a usual debate that go on in central banks all over the world. And, there are presidents and leaders all over the world who try attacking the central bank, and it backfires. But Donald Trump, thinks he's immune to that.
How should the rest of us, we who are not American, how should we view this? Is this a little local difficulty, or should we really be paying attention?
Oh, unfortunately, it's a big deal. The Federal Reserve is basically the central bank to the world. The dollar, although I think it's actually been somewhat in decline the last 10 years, is still by far the most important global currency. And behind it, what keeps it stable, what keeps inflation low, interest rates reasonably steady, is that the Federal Reserve is independent and is making technical choices and not bending to political whims. If the president gets his way, and it could well happen, we should expect a lot more volatility. You won't get galloping inflation overnight, but it will build up over time. More financial crises, more problems for everyone. And contrary to what Trump is aiming for, more people moving away from the dollar.
And that's how you see this ending then? You think that the president will get his way in the end?
I do. I mean, he's very intent, at the very least, to have his people running the Fed, where he feels comfortable that in a crisis, they'll do what's good for Donald Trump, or at least what he thinks is good for the country. But, again, he might back down and kick out Lisa Cook. He may find he can succeed in doing that, and then replace her with somebody who acts the same way. And maybe they feed him a quarter-point cut, but they don't go crazy.
Good talking to you. Thanks for guiding us through that. Professor Kenneth Rogoff from Harvard University.